people say to you, you know, I know what depression is like. You know, I've been through a divorce, or I've lost my job, or a bereavement. It's something deeper than that. It's the absence of feeling.
I associate depression with kind of feelings of dread, almost cosmic dread, and being transported into another very unpleasant world.
I just withdraw completely from people. You know, I don't socialise, I avoid, I won't answer the phone, I won't answer the door. I find it very difficult to talk to people.
You feel quite lonely. You feel that there is perhaps only you that's feeling like that. Although with the experience, I mean, it's something I've suffered for many years. I've learned there is obviously not just me, there is a lot of people and there is support there, but it can be difficult to find.
First happened to me, people said, you know, you would have been the last person that I would have thought it would have happened to. But the more you talk about it, the more people admit to having suffered from depression. I mean, I have bad days, just like everybody else has bad days, but it's when I have these bouts, you know, that last for 2 to 3 months, and it just disables me. I can't work. You know, I just can't lead a normal life, and that's all I want to do.
A lot of the research around depression has been very much focused on single episode and recovery from a single episode of depression, which is a common experience, but not everybody's experience. What we're particularly focused on in IQuEST is 3 studies which are linked together, trying to make sense of what is it like and how can the health service help people who experience longer term depression. And that's included interviews with 21 individual people who've experienced longer term depression, focus groups where we've took the information we've got from the interviews back to groups of people living with longer term depression, asked them whether it makes sense, and then we've fed all of that into stakeholder workshops where we brought together service users, researchers, clinicians, commissioners, to all talk about what we're finding and how might we decide which of these approaches we take into the services. A lot of the people on the study have had those sort of dual roles where they've been researchers and service users. They've been clinicians and researchers. They've been coming from a caring background and being a health service member of staff or researchers. So that's been a real strength, is that people have brought their varied experience to it, as well as their skills clinically and in research, and the expertise from their history of service use. So that's been a challenge and a real benefit of the way we work together.
The fact that I've had so many years of depression, and that takes away a lot of your life, takes away a lot of your confidence. Once you've experienced that and lived with it 24/7 for quite a number of years, then I think it qualifies you to some extent to be able to see the other's point of view.
I agreed to take part in the focus group because I just wanted to help with the research. The research can only be possible if people are happy to speak out. It's good to be involved in a focus group, especially when there's people who've suffered from depression, because they ask the right questions. As much as people, even clinicians, as much as they think they know about depression, they don't always ask the right questions.
Well, I do think that there is a place for people like myself, for research to use service users and to get the benefit of their experience. I think it has benefited my depression. Certainly it has given me, you know, some of the confidence back that I was lacking. And you just start to build on that, little by little.
We realised once we'd finished the qualitative study was that we had information here which would be very helpful to carers of people who are experiencing longer term depression and staff actually. we worked with a voluntary sector training organisation that are service users by background to think about how to turn some of the findings into a training pack which could be useful to people caring for folk who are living with longer term depression.
A lot of the people who came on the course commented on the value of the direct quotes from people that are scattered throughout the training resource, but also form the basis of the exercises that are in there. So
there's something very direct about getting the voices, and I think actually
the value of the training pack is that it enables the kind of findings of the research, which are about the reality of people's experience, to be conveyed in a particularly meaningful way. The sort of end result of the work was that there was a trainer's manual produced and a participant's manual, and they're available for download. And the idea is we've developed a course that will be delivered by a service user working in partnership with a mental health professional to deliver a course to a mixed group of mental health professionals and carers. The fact that we were all working together on a particular project, everyone had their particular area of expertise, and that was acknowledged by everyone. So there was an equality there.
Service users have had a different experience of the service than clinicians have. It's an equally valid but different way of looking at the same service. So bringing together the groups, we actually get added value through that disagreement, actually, through the different lenses of experience. We see different ways of understanding the challenges of improving the service, which is ultimately what we're all in the work for. What came out of the modelling work and the interviews is a whole list of possible areas that we could look at for improving services. So we needed to narrow that down because we couldn't test everything.
One of the areas that the group was involved in the IQueSTS project was looking at sorting out, in a way, all the different interventions and narrowing it down to sort of the 6 or 7, it was sort of either, interventions that will finally go to the actual case studies and actually will work in. And I think that in itself was the process, and that was just one of the areas that we were involved in. One of the reasons that, people with experience of depression are involved in these things are in the fact that they've gone through a process and they've learned things about their own condition, how to manage and things that go wrong and all those sorts of things, and how they've done it personally. And I suppose some of the interventions were sort of tapped into some of that.
It's like any illness, it affects different people in different ways, and different people cope in different ways. So you kind of know what you'd prefer to happen, and to be able to ask for that rather than just going into the doctors or whatever service that you're accessing at that time and they're thinking, right, you've got depression, we'll do this, this and this for you because this is what the set path is. It's you to think that no, that's not what I need. What I need is, and what's worked for me in the past, and that is different things for different people.
We've got approaches which are much more about the social context for therapy and depression. So the work, helping people manage work, is an important element, or building a better support network outside of the family, as examples. And then we've got specific clinical innovations, one of which is the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, is an approach that brings together some elements of cognitive therapy and traditions of meditation, which have obviously been around for thousands of years. To follow up from the mindfulness then, particular aspects of the practice you've decided to continue using mainly?
Yeah, the body scan is the one I was most comfortable with.
What the people who developed it recognised was that one of the real problems for people with depression is their relationship with their thoughts. That they have really awful thoughts often, which are repeated again and again and again, and they find it very difficult to stand back from those or detach from the thoughts. What the mindfulness-based approach is very helpful for is just noticing that you're separate from your thoughts. Your thoughts are over there and you are over here, and actually you don't have to be your thoughts.
In the last 10 or 11 years I've been on antidepressants. Although the antidepressants help a lot, I don't feel I don't think I've really learnt to live with the depression. I think I just felt this is never going to go away, and it just feels totally desperate, you know, just think this is just horrible. Recently I've attended an 8-week course on mindfulness. One of the meditations, the longer meditations that we learned, was the body scan, and it was seen as sort of a bit of a time out really. The aim was trying to not do anything, just notice things, just really notice how you were. And then it would sort of talk through maybe your feet, noticing how exactly they feel, whether you can feel any sensation in your feet, and then moving kind of up your legs and seeing how your legs feel. And it was really just sort of paying attention to each part of the body, and the intention was to kind of take that mindful feeling into the rest of your day, sort of actually paying attention to what you're actually doing or feeling at any moment, rather than skipping ahead all the time or thinking into the past. Sometimes it felt like really hard work, and it felt like my mind's just all over the place, but even so, what I did find fairly quickly was it was less tiring than having your thoughts just churning. And with the mindfulness, to be able to do something as simple as sort of concentrating on your breathing, I think I'm really learning to be in the moment, and it's quite interesting how I'm quite surprised how powerful that is, really.
For those that are severely depressed or that have recurrent depression, medication does have its place and can be quite useful in that place, but psychosocial interventions are the ones that sort of, they have much longer lasting benefit. They offset losses. They get people involved in their communities. They give people a reason, it's raison d'etre stuff, it's a reason to be. For everybody, the more that we can solve problems of our own, psychologically, that helps us in terms of confidence, in terms of self-esteem, being an agent and a potent agent of what happens to us is very healthy for the mind, for the psyche.
The idea of self-management, ultimately the experience of depression is something that relates to a person's individuality, to their self. So there'll be an opportunity in everyone's experience and in everyone's life that despite the experience of depression, there'll be opportunities to actually be proactive and do something about it. And for that to have meaning, it's got to relate to, you know, the reality of that person's being.
I felt as though it was sort of really looking at the long term, whereas in the past, I think, having just been treated by a GP for years, I was just kind of given antidepressants, and I'd have a bit of a chat if I was miserable and they'd up my antidepressants, or I'd decide I was going to stop them because I didn't like the side effects, and, you know, it didn't feel like I had a long-term plan, whereas I think, you know, getting your life started, I think those things are really, really helpful, but I think it is really difficult to do on your own. We
know that people are expert about their own problems, and that we can support them to develop that expertise much more quickly. And I think IQuESTS will really help with getting that sense of how services can be there much more effectively for service users with depression.